Hey there, welcome back to the Path to Zion podcast, where we are rediscovering the ancient way. Thank you so much for joining us back in for part two. Part one, we did the introduction. I don't know how I'm going to label it yet. It doesn't much matter. And we're going to talk primarily about camp number one that I mentioned in the introduction was a warning to those who may be on the other side, that we would call the popular side, the large crowd side, okay? The following the movements and the signs and wonders and the latest craze and spirit-led gathering and all the excitement and buzz people. If that's you, friend, that's okay, as long as you're willing to listen to what I'm going to say and consider it and see if that is in fact a warning you need to hear. And then we're going to talk about camp number two, which is, I believe, from where I sit and examine my own heart and life, camp number two, which is those who cling to the commandments of Yahweh and the testimony of Yeshua that we talk about that we read in Revelation. I believe that the commandments that were are the commandments that are and the commandments that will be in Revelation. And I believe that that is one of the things that the beast, the dragon, will loathe and hate are ones who love Yahweh by keeping Shamer, as we always talk about here, endlessly, guarding, preserving, and carrying on the commandments of the Creator, and holding tight to the testimony of Yeshua. The enemy will hate that, and this is what's coming in greater measure as we talk about those who are going to be unified against the Anointed. This is the biblical pattern of religious and secular cultures uniting to make war with Yahweh's people. Now, I said at the end of the introduction that there is a very strange text that launched this consideration for me. I wouldn't have ever chosen it or like gone there in some studies. I just was doing literally a casual reading of the end of Luke, and I read this phrase, and it just jumped off the page of me for some strange reason. And next thing you know, I typed 9 pages. That's just kind of how it goes with me if I have time and if I'm being a spiritual man and not a natural one. It just kind of snowballs. And so I'll read you the text, and you'll be like, wow, that's kind of an odd launching point. But it's Luke chapter 23, verse 11 and 12. And Herod, together with his soldiers, treated Yeshua with contempt and mocked him, dressing him in a brightly shining robe, and sent him back to Pilate. Now, here's the verse right here. That was like a tiny bit of context to allow you to know where in the world I even was. Verse 12, and so that very day, Herod and Pilate became friends with one another, for previously they had been enemies toward each other. Okay? That's the very odd, verse that launched me into looking about many scriptural references where people who were formerly enemies, people who were normally not in agreement on anything at all, unified to come together against Yahweh's people, depending on where I'm reading in the Bible, or right here, those who came together to take down and eliminate, remove Messiah, kill him. So to be clear, that very day, Herod and Pilate became friends with one another, for previously they had been enemies, okay? And so again, that is my launching pad of sorts into this entire discussion and train of thought, because as I was reading that several weeks ago in the book of Luke, this verse stood out to me in a very unique way. There are those of us who strive to model living as Messiah different than the majority do. I have been within Christianity, the belief system of evangelical Christianity, my whole life. And everybody always told us to look like Jesus, but nobody ever really talked about how to do that, like literally practically, other than, well, I just believe we're supposed to love God and love people because that's the two greatest. But like the nuts and bolts were never taught. They were never really explained. Now, people, if you only go back 15 years or so ago, talk about like the agape love, the reciprocal agape love of the Father, that we are supposed to love like that. And so that at least maybe cracked the door a little bit, but that's very elementary. You can only spend maybe a year on that, and then it's time to move to something else. We shouldn't park our car there for the next 30 years. Well, but okay, but and here we are in our life, in our house. Well, but If we love him, we keep his commandments. I guess I better know what his commandments are. And I guess I better know how my Father defines love, or else I'm going to come up with my own ideas of how to do so, which of course is not the goal for what we're supposed to do to really start looking like Messiah. So we believe that we should pursue specifics, okay? Set-apartedness, not go the way of the masses and the majority, but instead we should look to the Word and cling to what it says is right, wrong, good, evil. We're told that the people will call good evil and evil good. So that's a good warning that, like, we don't need to go with what majority says. We need to go with what the Word says, even when that marks us as odd, strange, wrong, and even heretical according to the Word itself, which gets real complicated. Then we're just told we don't understand the Word. But Yeshua clearly, among many things that he did on the earth, one of the things he did a lot was he stood up against and defied the religious traditions of his age. We just talked about that in Torah and truth, or talking about traditions of men. And like, well, which is it going to be? Which will we follow? Will we follow the traditions of our fathers, or will we follow the Torah of Yahweh Elohim, which we're told is perfect, reviving our soul? We all have that choice. But this Messiah, he stood up against man's ways, and he said, no, it's time to go my Father's ways, and I'm the perfect example of how to do that. People hated it. People hated him confronting their religious ways. We all know that, but like, we have to understand what it was they hated was not that he was bringing a new covenant they couldn't receive. They hated that they were told, they who had control of everything, and man, a tight grip on this truck was cruising on pretty good with them in control behind the wheel. And Yeshua came and said, get out of the truck. We're going back to my Father's commands that y'all have abandoned to erect your own. They hated being told that they were whitewashed tomb religious ones whose hearts were distant from the Father. And they came after with great persecution, in this case, united with secular leaders, okay, to make war against Yahweh's son, Yeshua. You understand my connection? Maybe I'm slow to get there. This is a perfect example of my point, okay? Because this pattern that we see is what forerunner Messiah encountered. This is what he encountered specifically when he was here on the earth. There's a unified endeavor between secular and religious cultures, leaders, unifying to eradicate the Son of Yahweh, okay? I believe this is a pattern for any of us to look at and in humility say, if and when we truly walk like Messiah and speak like he did, and we want to come out of the mainstream belief system, if we do this, using this text alone as an example, we will see the same thing. We will see the exact same thing in our age, I believe. I think this is maybe for me one of the first things that really resounds in me, that when Messiah said they will hate you because of me, I think that's a small level for me to begin to understand what he was talking about. Because my other understanding of like proclaiming the gospel and all that stuff, like that never really seemed to fulfill what he said. Like, but this scenario, oh, okay, this I'm seeing infuriates people, saying, no, you're religious whitewashed tombs. You have dead works. We need to return to the commands of Yahweh Elohim. Friend, people who claim to know God, and to go back to our introduction, who cast out demons and do signs and wonders in the name of Messiah, are not known by him. And they are wolves in sheep's clothing. They're within the fold, but their fruit stinks. And they abandon the commandments of Yahweh. They're lawless workers of iniquity, is what we talked about. We read the word, okay? A holy set-apart life unto Yahweh that has boundaries, restraint, direction, and thereby blessing and true freedom will infuriate other people. It will infuriate people, okay? Biblically now, this always incites others to great anger and infuriates the masses who strive to continue religious traditions in man-made structures of order. Okay? This, biblically speaking, again, because we're looking at the biblical pattern now. When you come and you say, thus says Yahweh Elohim, my opinion and yours do not matter. We can look at the Israelites. We can look at the Egyptians. We can look at Noah's day. We can look at Yeshua's day. We can look through Paul's adventures. Friends, people despise and hate hearing according to the word and not, the Spirit says, the Spirit's saying, just a minute, the Spirit. I'm talking about, thus saith Yahweh. People hate that. Believers who claim to know God, friend, hate that. Hate it. It's baffling to me. But, no, he didn't mean that. Or that's different now, and here we are with dispensational doctrine. No, but that's how God used to be in Exodus. He used to be that way, and now he became baby Jesus, and he just wants to be hugging everybody. It's bad doctrine, friend. As we mentioned in the introduction, even secular science and Bible apologetics are starting to hug and embrace and shake hands now. Don't worry about teaching your children according to the Torah and what creation account says is and is not. Don't worry about that. Science has proven. We believe the Bible. We believe the Bible, Timmy. We believe the Bible. But those people who wrote the Bible back then, Timmy, they weren't very educated. They didn't have space telescopes, and they didn't have satellites, and they didn't have... Friends, you know what they had? The word of Elohim. They had the written word of Elohim, thus saith Yahweh. And we have said, friends, not we here, but religious culture has united with secular culture, and they now believe secular culture's opinion over the word of Yahweh. They're unifying, friend. Are you seeing this? Are you aware? Are you alert that this is happening? All belief systems are merging. All belief systems are merging into a unified, one world, religious, secular culture. Okay? They're all beginning to agree. There is a unifying that is increasing. And this atheistic evil agenda is winning all day long. And people don't even seem to notice. Leading the indoctrination of many who claim to be believing the Bible, but for some reason they look to the world for truth. They look to the worldly systems for truth, for understanding, for education. For education, friends. Don't even get me started about putting our children in classrooms and chairs to listen to atheists explain the creation story, and then they come home and we talk about the Bible. What? No, this isn't working. This isn't working. It is producing what the system is desiring to produce. Mixing wayward people who are confused, and secular culture wins out every single time. I found this pattern all over the Word, and I compiled several examples for us. There are many more of this unification of secular and religious cultures coming together. Okay? And so I'm going to read some of these now. Psalm chapter 2, this is repeated again in Acts chapter 4. Why are the nations in an uproar, and the peoples mutter vanity? The kings of earth set themselves up, and rulers gather together against Yahweh and against his anointed one. Okay? See where we get the title from? So the kings of the earth, they set themselves up, rulers gather together, and they're against Yahweh, and they are against his anointed one. Psalm chapter 83, verses 2 through 5. For behold, your enemies make an uproar, and those who hate you have exalted themselves. They make shrewd plans against your people. They conspire together against your treasured ones. They have said, come and let us wipe them out as a nation, so that the name of Israel will no longer be remembered. For they have conspired together with one mind. They make a covenant against you. Okay, let's just make sure we're highlighting the language here to make my point that when I say at the very beginning of this that there will be a unification of secular and religious cultures becoming one unified, agreeable people that will be against the anointed, it is not just my mere opinion. This is not some prophetic vision I've had. This is literally just reading the word and saying we have seen a pattern. And we will continue to see this if we believe the prophets, if we believe Revelation, if we believe the words of Messiah, this will continue and will increase. So again, here in Psalm chapter 83, they have said, come and let us wipe these people out as a nation so that the name of Israel will no longer be remembered. Why? These people have conspired together with one mind. They make a covenant against you. There is a covenantal agreement that people will unify together to eradicate the holy, set-apart people of Elohim. So camp number 1, may this be a warning to those who are knowingly or in ignorance coming against what Messiah demonstrated and taught us. We know that there are endless warnings for these. We see him allude to this in Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. It says this, therefore, whoever nullifies one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, why do I mention this verse? Because the dispensational doctrines of men, they have told us that works are bad and Yahweh's law is a burden. These have been the perfect poster child now, the perfect example of a unification of a large mass of people that have unified to create an entire religion of Christianity that has nullified Father's commandments. Okay? I highlighted this in a recent episode just a few weeks back. Christianity leads the way to be a representable, like a representation of a unified people who have fulfilled Yeshua's warnings in Matthew chapter 5. This religion has said, we shall teach others to nullify the commandments. They have done it, and they have taught others to do it. Okay? This movement of Christianity, this religion, has fulfilled this to perfection. Yet most don't see it. And this is what we're talking about. Deception here. No matter how popular it is to shout about how free we are in Jesus, and that's just such a fun, freeing unifier, what is the fruit of this, friend? What is the fruit that is maturing on the trees of this religious movement? Is it working? Is it working to produce set-apart, anointed ones? I don't want us to be found in this camp because we don't examine rightly in maturity what we do and why and what religion we follow, even if everybody else around us does it. We must solidify now what side we're on. Do we stand upon the truth of the word like really? I mean all of it? Not just the Psalms that we like. In Psalm 119, David was just having a bad day and didn't know what he was talking about when he talked all these wonderful things about the Torah enduring forever. He didn't really mean that. Do we have in any way a hollow profession of faith that produces dead works? Because, again, we could be ones in camp number 1 who's casting out demons. Doesn't mean we're in Yahweh. We could be raising the dead. Doesn't mean Messiah knows us. Signs, wonders, glory meetings, shouting, dancing, singing, feeling the Spirit. Doesn't mean Yahweh has a clue who we are. Doesn't mean that we are His, biblically. Do we say that we're set apart with our mouths? Yet we really don't look much different than the world in all of her patterns. A sifting is coming, friend. A sifting is coming. A greater separation is coming. It's not going to be fun and like exciting if you're on the ones that are getting booted out of the masses either. That's where we're getting to with the next part here. But be careful that you're not a lawless one, friend, a transgressor, one who's a worker of iniquity. The Messiah says, look, man, you did a whole bunch of exciting things. You got real excited, but I don't know you. I don't know you. You looked like a sheep. You looked just like all the sheep, but you yielded bad fruit, dead works. I hope that's not me. I hope, friend, that's not you either. I don't want that to be any one of us. Which is why we're talking about. There's going to be a unified endeavor against the anointed ones of Yahweh, his set-apart people. And it's going to be religious, and it's going to be secular cultures that are coming together unified to make war with Yahweh's people. Thank you for watching the Path to Zion podcast. We are rediscovering the ancient way.